Many founders, when they start their companies, they don't have a full appreciation of how important the name of a company is. And they tend to make mistakes that they regret down the road because it is very difficult to change the name of a company. And the name of a company eventually becomes your brand. So it needs to be a good name. However, many people don't know where to start. I'll try to give you some very important guidelines. The number one important guideline is to use short name. Don't use long names. Short names like Apple or McDonald's. People will only remember one word. Even though your name might be called Los Angeles Lakers, people will only remember the Lakers. Your name might be Kobe Bryant. People will only remember Kobe. People tend to remember only one word about you. So use a short name. Second is to use a familiar name. This would help because this can be used to attract audiences to your website, to your company, etc., and makes it easier for people to remember. If your name is very hard to pronounce or hard to remember, people have an excuse to forget about you, and that's not something you want to happen. Number three is that the name has to be legal, but you don't want to worry too much about it. It obviously have to be trademarked. So you want to search the trademark database, but you also want to search the Google search box. You want to search the domain registry. You want to find out if people have already been using the name that you want in some web activities, in social networking activities. Sometimes the name may be available as a company, but it may not be available because somebody is already using it as their username, as their product name. And so you need to change. So it's important to check for full frontal conflict. Avoid it at the very beginning. And then use your name. The important thing is to use your name. I'll emphasize this again later. Number four guideline is that you must have a name that's easy to understand, hard to forget, and it has to represent your value. Again, if you use it long enough and people know what value you stand for, the word will become representative of your value. But it's obviously easier if you know that from the beginning. I'll give you three good examples of American companies. The first one is Apple. In the movie Jobs, Ashton Kutcher played Steve Jobs. This movie is a 2013 version. When Jobs and Wozniak, the co-founder, was going to a club to sell their computer, the keyboard and very geeky monitors, Wozniak asks Jobs, what if somebody asks the name of the company? We can't just tell them it's Jobs and Wozniak. Well, Steve Jobs said Apple. So it was that easy to give a good name. The second example is McDonald's. In the movie Founder, Michael Keaton played Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's. So Ray Kroc helped the McDonald's brothers in California develop the company into a national chain. When Ray was going to buy out the McDonald's brothers at a meeting, one of the brothers asks Ray, so why don't you just steal our idea? Why don't you just do it with some other names? Well, the answer that Ray gives is that I like the name McDonald's on the first sight. I love the name. It sounds wholesome. It sounds American. It sounds tough. It sounds like McDonald's. It sounds like the restaurant that I want to create. So essentially, he paid $2 million just to have the name. The third example is Amazon. Amazon started with the name Amazon, and it's now still using it. And it represents the vastness of its offerings. This is the founder's vision from day one. When naming your company, you want to avoid some rookie mistakes. Here are some of the rookie mistakes that I see all over. A lot of Chinese companies are named with 4 Chinese characters. Don't do that. It's not going to stick. It sounds trendy, it sounds cool, but it's not going to stick. Don't use combinations of words, and don't use cool names. Names such as social network and me. It may sound interesting, but people are not going to be able to remember it, and it's hard to distinguish it on search engines. Cool Jobs underscore Inc. This may be very easy to register as a name, inexpensive, but you're going to regret it later once a company becomes big. Here's a story. When the founders of Facebook started, the website's name was called thefacebook.com. So they spent about $200,000 to correct the web address from thefacebook.com to facebook.com. It is that important to have a name that's correct. The last words of advice is that you have to be brave. Okay, remember, if you use a name, it will eventually become you. So you don't have to be afraid to use a strange word or to use a name that's unfamiliar. I'm giving you as a general advice, but it doesn't replace your effort. Once you put up 10 years of efforts and you use it day in and day out, and your customers know the value you represent, and people associate what you do with your name and with what your value is, the name becomes a brand. And that's what people mean when they say brand power. The last thing of advice is that unlike a person, your company has to be famous, so you must be prepared for fame. Even though some people might want to remain low-key and they don't want to be famous, a company has to be famous, at least to its audiences. I hope what I have been talking about helps you make some early decisions. Thank you.